First up, a change in the nation's capital. Today, the Wizards fired longtime team president Ernie Grunfeld. Grunfeld drafted All-Stars John Wall and Bradley Beal, reached the postseason in 8 of his 16 seasons on the job, not this one. And the franchise never advanced beyond the second round during his tenure. Wizards owner Ted Leonsis explained the decision today.
Well, he didn't work for me for 16 years. And each year that he worked for me, we sat down and said, what are our expectations? What are our goals? And we're very, very thoughtful and mindful and spend a lot of time on what the goals should be. And we set that up this year and we didn't meet them. And so that's what happened this year.
Long-term general manager. I mean, he's been running the show for a decade and a half. He's on his third president there in Washington, D.C. Whoever winds up replacing Grunfeld will know that, he most likely won't have John Wall for the entirety of next season because of his injury, and that B, John Wall will still be eating up about $38 million in payroll as his 4-year, $170 million extension kicks in. How do those facts influence who would want the job, for one, and how they'll approach the rebuild in Washington?
I think it's a terrific job. I think the fact that Ted is, I think, one of the top owners in the NBA because he wants to win. I think he's willing to do whatever it is to produce a winner for the nation's capital, the city that you're in, the fans that they have there. And they have had this up and down run. Ernie Grunfeld did a very good job, but things have been in turmoil there. I don't want to overblow the situation, but it seems like there's always a problem that was taking place recently. And as is the nature of the game, somebody's going to pay the price in the end. It's either the coach, this time it happens to be a GM.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a very coveted position in terms of there's sitting general managers that are going to want that job because of the patience that Monumental Sports and their ownership group showed in the front office. Ernie Grunfeld is basketball royalty to people who joined the NBA when I did. He's somebody that was a gold medalist in '76. He's a guy that was a GM in New York, Milwaukee, then Washington. He's somebody that people like me looked up to in the business. He had a tremendous run there. And I think when you look at the confidence and the patience that was shown in his regime, you have to feel like Tommy Shepard's going to be in a very strong position there. Maybe Tim Connelly, who's in Denver, somebody who has a history with that group. That seems to be, that loyalty factor seems to be a big thing there.
You saw Tommy Shepard in the video of Ernie Grunfeld sitting to his right, to your left on the screen. He'll be running things short term and maybe long term. He's a candidate for that job. Whoever comes in, how do you approach what's happened there, given the roster you have and the payroll you have? And you can't ignore the Wall contract at the top of that list.
Well, it's a challenge, and it's a challenge in large part because cap space is at such a premium in the NBA, and they're really not in a position where they're going to pivot really quickly in terms of space and the way they use their space. So it's going to take somebody who's got a pretty skilled hand in terms of whittling down the money so that you can continue to add and build a team around Brad Beal, because we've talked about this, Coach, several times. Brad Beal is really what you have to develop that team around. And once John Wall became injured, it became very clear that that's certainly the case now moving forward.
Is one of the first decisions whoever it is that comes in there has to make is, do we keep these two guys together in the backcourt? Is that something, I think that the head of the list when you sit down with ownership is, how do you feel about these two guys together?
I don't know that it's an optional conversation either, because if you made the decision that you wanted to move off of John, given his injury situation, the length and size of the contract moving forward, the magnitude of that deal in and of itself, it's probably not an optional situation for you when you really look at whether or not you want to keep those guards together. The question is, how do you put other people with Brad in light of the fact that in all likelihood that contract is going to be on your books?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure moving John Wall is an option, at least this upcoming year with all that money coming over the next 4 seasons. You know, maybe if you get 2 years into it, maybe you can move him if he proves to be healthy again. John tweeted his thanks to Ernie Grunfeld for bringing me to D.C. As Ted stated, we haven't had the success that we've hoped for over the years, but I'm hopeful for the future of the organization. As for the games tonight,